I need to tell you about my best friend. His name was Marcus Webb, and 3 years ago he made a deal with insurgents that kept 12 men breathing. 18 others from 3rd Platoon weren't so lucky, and I'm the only one who knows what really happened that day outside Kandahar. I'm the only one who knows that Marcus saved us all, even though proving it would destroy his memory and wreck his family. So I carry this alone, and I'll carry it until the day I'm gone. But you need to hear it. Someone does. My name is David Chen, Staff Sergeant, United States Army, 3rd Battalion, 87th Infantry. I did 3 tours in Afghanistan between 2009 and 2014. Marcus Webb was my best friend for all 3 of them. We went through basic together at Fort Benning in '09, both of us 21 years old, both of us thinking we knew what we were getting into. We didn't know anything. Marcus was from South Carolina, a small town outside Charleston. His father had served in Desert Storm and his grandfather in Vietnam. Military family, the kind where service isn't just expected, it's who you are. He had this easy confidence, the kind that made other guys want to follow him even when he was just a private like the rest of us. Dark hair, always cut regulation even on leave, big laugh that you could hear across the barracks. The kind of guy who'd give you his last cigarette or his last dollar, whichever you needed more. I was from Seattle. My parents were both doctors, and they'd expected me to follow that path. Pre-med at Washington State, good grades, everything lined up. Then September of my junior year, I realized I couldn't spend my life in a hospital. I needed something else, something that mattered in a different way. I dropped out, enlisted, and didn't tell my parents until the papers were signed. They didn't speak to me for 6 months. Marcus and I became friends during a 20-mile ruck march in week 7 of basic. We were both struggling. Everyone was struggling. But we ended up falling into step together, neither of us willing to fall out in front of the other. We didn't talk much, just marched. By mile 15, we were practically holding each other up. By mile 20, we knew we'd be watching each other's backs for however long this lasted. Turns out, it lasted 5 years. Our first deployment was 2010, Helmand Province, forward operating base Dwyer, right in the middle of Taliban country. We were infantry riflemen, which meant we went where they sent us and did what they told us. Patrols, checkpoints, clearing operations. It was hot and dusty and boring until it was absolutely terrifying. Marcus and I were in the same squad, and by the end of that first tour, we'd seen enough that we didn't have to explain things to each other anymore. We just knew. Second tour was 2012, same province, different base. By then, we were both specialists, and Marcus was being groomed for leadership. Sergeants liked him, officers trusted him. He had this way of keeping guys calm when things got intense. I remember this one firefight outside Marja. We'd walked into an ambush, rounds coming from 3 directions, and everyone was panicking. Marcus just stood there in cover, returning fire, calling out positions in this steady voice like he was ordering coffee. Contact left, behind the wall. Contact right, rooftop. Chen, you got that window? Just calm. It spread through the squad like a wave. We all settled down and did our jobs. We made it through that tour with only 2 casualties in our platoon. Gonzalez took shrapnel in his leg, got sent home. Williams twisted his ankle so bad on patrol that he couldn't deploy again. Considering what other units were going through, we were lucky. Third tour was different. We deployed in March 2014 to Kandahar province, attached to a larger operation meant to disrupt Taliban supply lines moving through the mountain passes. By this point, we were both sergeants. Marcus had his own fire team, I had mine. We'd been doing this long enough that we could read each other in a firefight, coordinate without radio chatter, know what the other was thinking just by the way we moved. Our platoon was based at a small outpost called Firebase Phoenix, about 40 kilometers north of Kandahar city. It wasn't much. HESCO barriers, plywood buildings, a few guard towers, 28 men, 2 platoons rotating on patrol duty. The area was relatively quiet, which should have been our first warning. In Afghanistan, quiet usually meant they were planning something. Marcus was acting strange for about 3 weeks before everything went sideways. Little things at first. He'd always been social, always the first guy to crack a joke in the chow line or organize a poker game in the evenings. But he started keeping to himself more. He'd sit alone on watch, staring out at the mountains. He wasn't sleeping well. I'd wake up for my shift and see him already awake, even though he wasn't due up for another 2 hours. When I asked if everything was okay, he'd just nod and say he was fine. But his eyes told a different story.
I figured it was the stress. We'd all felt it by the third tour, that weight that settles on you. The knowledge that you've used up your share of luck and now you're operating on borrowed time. Some guys got quiet, some got reckless, some just stopped caring about anything except getting home. I thought Marcus was just feeling what we all felt. I was wrong. The mission briefing came down on a Tuesday morning in late September. Command had intelligence about a Taliban weapons cache in a village called Zari Dasht, about 15 kilometers into the mountains. Our platoon was tasked with moving in, securing the cache, and holding position until an EOD team could arrive to dispose of whatever we found. Standard operation. We left before dawn the next day. 2 Humvees, 12 guys total. First squad, which was mine. Marcus's squad was staying back on base security. We'd rotate next time. The drive out was uneventful. Sun coming up over the ridgeline, turning everything gold and red. Radio chatter kept to a minimum. I was in the lead vehicle with Staff Sergeant Hayes, our platoon sergeant. Good guy, career Army, 2 kids back in North Carolina. He was singing along to country music under his breath, this habit he had that used to drive us crazy, but we'd all grown to love. Small things like that kept you human out there. We reached Zari Dasht around 0800 hours. Small village, maybe 20 compounds scattered along a dry riverbed. We dismounted and started moving through on foot, checking buildings. The villagers were gone, not unusual when they knew military was coming. But something felt off. Too quiet. No dogs barking. No chickens in the yards. Nothing. Hayes held up a fist, signaling us to halt. We took defensive positions while he consulted the map coordinates. The cache was supposed to be in a compound on the west edge of the village, a mud brick building with a green door. We found it. Door was unlocked. That should have been the second warning. Before I tell you what I found in that compound, if you're hooked on this story, hit that like button and subscribe. There are dozens more voices like mine here. And drop a comment with your country. I'm curious where all of you are listening from. We cleared the compound room by room. Hayes, myself, and 4 others. 2 stayed outside on security. The first 3 rooms were empty, just sleeping mats and a small cook fire. Then we hit the back room, and that's where things changed. The weapons cache was there. AK-47s, RPG rounds, mortars, ammunition crates. Enough firepower to supply an entire cell for months. But something else was there too. Documents. Stacks of them in plastic bags to keep them dry. Maps of the region with routes marked in red pencil. And photographs. Lots of photographs. Of our firebase. Detailed shots of our defensive positions. Guard rotation schedules. Vehicle counts. Even photos of specific soldiers, including several of me and Marcus. Written on the back of one photo in English were the words, "Primary targets, command structure." My blood went cold. This wasn't just a weapons cache. This was an intelligence hub. They'd been watching us for weeks, maybe months, planning something. Hayes grabbed the radio. "Phoenix Base, this is Shadow 2 Actual. We've got a situation here. Need immediate extraction," and that's when the first RPG hit. The explosion took out the front wall of the compound. I was thrown backward, ears ringing, dust everywhere. Hayes was yelling something I couldn't hear. Gunfire erupted from multiple directions. They had us surrounded. We returned fire, but we were pinned down, couldn't move from the compound without getting cut down. This was the ambush. We'd walked right into it. For the next 40 minutes, we fought for our lives. 2 of our guys went down in the first 5 minutes.
Rodriguez took a round through the shoulder. Jackson got hit with shrapnel from another RPG. We dragged them into cover, but we couldn't evacuate. The moment we tried to move toward the vehicles, they'd light us up. I remember thinking this was it. This was how it ended. Pinned down in a mud compound in the middle of nowhere, listening to my friends get wounded one by one. I thought about my parents. I hadn't spoken to them in 8 months, not since an argument about me re-enlisting. I wanted to tell them I was sorry for that. Then, impossibly, the firing stopped. Not gradually, not like they were falling back. Just stopped. Complete silence except for the ringing in my ears and Rodriguez groaning in pain. Hayes looked at me, confusion all over his face. The hell is going on? We waited. 30 seconds, a minute, no gunfire, no movement. Finally, Hayes made the call. We move now. Get to the vehicles. Chen and Davis get Rodriguez. Morgan, you got Jackson. Covering fire on my mark. We moved fast, expecting them to open up again any second, but they didn't. We made it to the Humvees, loaded the wounded, and drove out of there like hell was chasing us. I kept waiting for the crack of a sniper rifle, for another RPG. Nothing came.
We made it back to Firebase Phoenix by noon. Rodriguez and Jackson were stable, got medevaced out that afternoon. They'd both survive, though Jackson lost part of his left hand. The rest of us sat in the debriefing room, trying to make sense of what happened. Why did they stop firing? Why did they let us go? Command didn't have answers. The intelligence we recovered suggested they'd been planning a major assault on our firebase, but something had changed their plan at the last minute. That night, I found Marcus sitting alone on the firebase perimeter, smoking a cigarette. He didn't smoke. I'd never seen him smoke in 5 years. "You all right?" I asked. He looked at me, and there was something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Fear. Not the normal fear you carry in combat. Everyone has that. This was different. Deeper. "You made it back," he said. "Thank God." "We almost didn't. They had us pinned down bad. Then they just stopped. Let us walk out." Marcus nodded slowly. He took another drag from the cigarette, his hand shaking slightly. "Yeah, I heard." "You know anything about that? Why they'd let us go?" He shook his head. "No idea, man. Just glad you're okay." But he wouldn't look at me when he said it. Over the next week, I started putting pieces together that didn't fit. The morning we'd left for that mission, Marcus had been up before dawn, even though he wasn't on duty. I'd seen him near the communications tent, pacing. At the time, I thought he was just anxious about us going out. 2 nights before the mission, he'd volunteered for a solo guard duty shift on the North Tower, the one that overlooked the road to Kandahar. When I asked why he'd take an extra shift, he said he couldn't sleep anyway. And 3 weeks before that, right around when he started acting strange, he'd been part of a patrol that got separated from the main group for about 6 hours. They'd reported radio malfunction, said they'd hunkered down in a village until they could re-establish communication. It had seemed reasonable at the time. I didn't want to think what I was thinking, but the thoughts kept coming anyway. Now here's where everything changed. But real quick, if you're invested in how this ends, I genuinely appreciate a subscription. More soldier stories drop daily. Comment your country below. Always amazes me how far these reach. 2 days after we got back from Zari de Shad, 3rd Platoon went on a routine patrol to a village about 10 kilometers west. All 12 of them. Staff Sergeant Kowalski was in command. They didn't come back. The first report came in around 1500 hours. 3rd Platoon had missed their check-in, then another missed check-in. By 1700 hours, Command sent out a quick reaction force to find them. What they found wasn't pretty. 3rd Platoon had walked into a coordinated ambush, multiple firing positions, pre-placed IEDs, the whole setup. The insurgents had let them get deep into the village, then hit them from every angle. No warning. No chance. 18 men, gone. Only the QRF arriving in force had prevented it from being a complete massacre. They managed to extract 4 survivors, all wounded. The rest didn't make it. The firebase went quiet after that.
everyone processing it in their own way. 18 guys we'd been eating with, joking with, living with for months, just gone. I found Marcus in the chapel that night. We had a small plywood structure that served as a multi-faith space, usually empty except on Sundays. He was sitting in the front row, head in his hands. I sat down next to him. We didn't speak for a long time. Finally, he said, "It should have been us." "What?" "That patrol route, that was supposed to be our assignment. Command switched it last minute, put 3rd Platoon on it instead." "I hadn't known that. When did they switch it?" 2 days ago, right after your squad got back from Zari to Shad." Something cold settled in my stomach. "Marcus, why did they switch it?" He didn't answer. "Marcus, look at me." He turned and his eyes were wet. "I couldn't let it happen to you guys. I couldn't." "What did he let happen? What did you do?" He shook his head. "I can't tell you. You'd never understand. Try me." He stood up to leave, but I grabbed his arm. "Marcus, what did you do?" He pulled away. "I saved 12 men, David. 12 men who are breathing because I made a choice. That's all you need to know." He walked out, leaving me sitting there in the dim light, my mind racing through scenarios, none of them good. I couldn't let it go. Over the next few days, I dug deeper, asked quiet questions, looked at records I probably shouldn't have been looking at, and slowly, piece by piece, the picture came together. 3 weeks ago, Marcus's patrol had gotten separated. They had reported radio malfunction, but I checked the maintenance logs. Marcus's radio had been serviced the day before that patrol. It had been working fine. The night before our mission to Zari Dashad, someone had accessed the operations computer and looked at the patrol schedules for the next 2 weeks. The login was from Marcus's account.
And the day after we survived that ambush, someone had visited the command tent and recommended switching the patrol assignments, citing tactical flexibility. That someone was Marcus. He'd known. Somehow he'd known that 3rd Platoon was walking into an ambush, and he'd made sure they went instead of us. "Something," I said. He didn't look up. "Don't, David. Those guys are gone. 18 men, and you knew it was going to happen. I didn't know that would happen to them, but you knew something was going to happen. You knew enough to make sure we didn't go on that patrol." I moved closer. "How? How did you know?" He set down the cleaning rod, finally meeting my eyes. "You're not going to let this go, are you?" "No." He was quiet for a long moment, then sighed. 3 weeks ago, when my patrol got separated, we didn't have radio malfunction. We were captured." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What?" "The Taliban patrol intercepted us. 6 of us, 20 of them. They took us to a compound, separated us. I thought we were gone. I was saying goodbye in my head." "Jesus, Marcus, why didn't you report?" "Because of what happened next. They brought me into a room, just me. There was a man there, older guy, spoke perfect English. He said his name was Tariq, that he was a commander. He said they'd been watching our firebase for months, planning an attack that would wipe us out completely. He showed me maps, documents, everything." My hands were shaking. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because he made me an offer." Marcus's voice was barely a whisper. "He said they'd let my patrol go, all of us, unharmed, and they'd call off the attack on our firebase. In exchange, I'd provide information." "What kind of information?" "Patrol routes, schedules, where we'd be and when." He looked down at his hands. I said no at first. I told him to go to hell. Then he showed me something else, a video on a laptop, live feed from a camera watching our firebase. I could see our guys walking around, working, laughing. He said, "I can have 50 men hit that position in 6 hours. Most of your friends will be gone by nightfall. Or you can help me avoid unnecessary conflict and everyone lives." I couldn't breathe. "So you made a deal. You became an informant." "I saved my guys that day. We walked out of there alive. And I saved our firebase from getting overrun." His voice cracked. "But I had to give them something. So I gave them alternate targets, routes that other platoons would be using, times and places far enough away that it wouldn't be obvious I was involved."
The weight of it crashed down on me. 3rd Platoon. You sent them to their end. I didn't know it would be that bad, Tariq said. He just wanted to avoid us, not... He stopped, shaking his head. I thought maybe they'd take some shots, maybe hit a vehicle. I didn't think... 18 men, Marcus. 18. And 12 others are alive because of it. 12 men who'd be gone if I hadn't made that choice. He stood up, anger and anguish mixing in his voice. You think I don't know what I did? You think I don't see their faces every time I close my eyes? But I'd make the same choice again because you're alive, David. Hayes is alive. Morgan, Davis, Thompson, all alive. I chose to save the people I could save. We stood there, the weight of it hanging between us. A horrible, impossible choice that no one should ever have to make. You have to turn yourself in, I finally said. Report what happened, face the consequences. If I do that, I ruin my family. My father, my grandfather, their legacy. I destroy my mother. And for what? Those guys aren't coming back anyway. Nothing I do now will change what happened. It's the right thing to do. Or is it just the thing that makes you feel better about it? I didn't have an answer for that. Marcus wiped his eyes, took a breath. I'm not asking you to understand. I'm not even asking you to forgive me. I'm asking you to let me carry this. Let it be my burden. Don't make their families wonder if their sons were betrayed by one of their own. Let them think it was just war, just bad luck. I don't know if I can do that. Then think about it. Just think about it. He left me there, surrounded by gun oil and cleaning supplies, with a choice that would haunt me for the rest of my life. I spent 3 days trying to figure out what to do. Report him, and I'd destroy him and his family. Stay quiet, and I'd be complicit in the greatest betrayal I could imagine. Every option felt wrong. Then something happened that changed everything.
I was in the intelligence office. Couldn't sleep, going through the documents we'd recovered from Zari Dasht. I'd gotten permission to review them for the after-action report. Maps, notes, photographs. I was looking for anything that might explain why they'd let us walk out of that ambush. That's when I found it. A folder marked with Pashto writing. Inside were more patrol schedules, more maps. But these were different. These showed routes for our firebase. 1st Platoon, 2nd Platoon. Our routes, my routes. And next to one marked route, dated for the same day we'd gone to Zari Dasht, someone had written in English, primary elimination target, firebase leadership, ensure complete neutralization. They were planning to use that patrol to wipe out our command structure, Hayes, our platoon leaders, the guys who held everything together. But then I found something else. A second map, same date, different location. The route 3rd Platoon had eventually taken, the one where they'd been hit. Next to this route, in different handwriting, alternate target, no survivors. 3rd Platoon hadn't been a random target of opportunity. They'd been the backup plan. I sat there in the dim light of the office, trying to process what I was seeing. These documents were before Marcus had made his deal with Tariq, which meant the Taliban had already planned to hit multiple platoons that day. They'd already decided that if they couldn't hit 1st Platoon, they'd take out 3rd Platoon instead. Marcus's information hadn't caused 3rd Platoon's ambush. They were already on the list. The Taliban had been planning to hit someone that day no matter what. But there was more. I kept digging through the documents, found a folder marked Firebase Phoenix Operations. Inside were detailed plans for a full-scale assault on our position, 50 combatants, coordinated attack from 3 sides, mortars on the towers, RPGs on the vehicles, small arms fire to pin everyone down while they breached the walls. Estimated casualties, 60 to 80% enemy elimination. The attack was scheduled for 4 days after Marcus's patrol had been captured. It had never happened. I sat back, my hands shaking. Marcus had told me Tariq had offered to call off the firebase attack if Marcus cooperated. I'd assumed that was just talk, a manipulation tactic. But it was real. They'd actually planned to overrun us. 28 guys against 50 attackers with the element of surprise and superior positioning. Most of us would have been gone. But Marcus had made his deal, and they'd called it off. They'd taken the information he'd provided and used it to hit alternate targets instead, conserving their resources while still inflicting damage on U.S. forces.
It was strategic, cold, calculated, and it had saved my life. I found Marcus on the North Tower at 0200 hours. He was on watch, looking out at the darkness beyond the wire. I saw the documents. He didn't turn around. What documents? From Zari Dasht, the attack plans. They were going to hit the firebase, wipe us out. Yeah, and 3rd Platoon was already on their list. They were already planning to hit them if they couldn't hit us. Now he turned. What? I explained what I'd found, the maps, the notes, the alternate targets. As I spoke, I watched his face change, confusion, then realization, and something that might have been relief mixed with horror. They were already going to hit them? He whispered. Whether I gave them information or not? Yeah, you didn't cause it, Marcus. You just chose which target they'd prioritize. He leaned against the tower wall, like his legs wouldn't hold him. But I still chose. I still made the call that sent them there instead of us. You made the call that saved 12 guys from a firebase attack that would have wiped out most of us. You traded a possible outcome for a certain outcome. That's not betrayal. That's making the least bad choice in an impossible situation. 18 men are still gone because I made a deal with the enemy. 18 men are gone because the Taliban planned to hit someone that day no matter what. You didn't cause the ambush. You just made sure it wasn't us. I paused. That's still a heavy thing to carry, but it's not the same as what you thought you'd done. We stood there in the darkness, the weight of it settling differently now. Not lighter. It would never be light, but different. I still gave them information, Marcus said finally. I still collaborated with the enemy. That's treason, even if the outcome was complicated? Yeah. I thought about it, about reporting him, about what that would mean, the investigation, the court-martial, his family destroyed. And for what? For making a choice that saved lives, even if it meant losing others? I'm not reporting it. I'm not reporting it. Those documents never make it into any report. You made a call that saved the firebase and saved our squad. The fact that you had to trade information to do it, that's between you and whatever you believe in. But I'm not destroying you from making a choice I might have made in the same position. You wouldn't have. Maybe not. But I wasn't there. I didn't have to look at that video feed and choose between my friends being overrun or becoming a traitor. You did, and you chose to keep us breathing. I can live with that.
Marcus's eyes were wet. I don't know if I can. Then that's the cost. You carry it, but you carry it alive, with your family intact, with your honor as intact as it can be given what happened, and I carry it too, because I'm choosing to protect you instead of reporting you. We finished that tour 3 months later. No more attacks on our firebase. 3rd Platoon's losses were attributed to bad intelligence and bad timing. Marcus put in for early separation when we got stateside, said he needed to be done. I didn't argue. We stayed in touch for about a year after. Calls every few weeks, texts checking in. But it got harder. Every conversation carried the weight of what we knew, what we'd never tell anyone else. The distance grew until we just stopped reaching out. I heard through mutual friends that he'd gone to work for his father's construction company in South Carolina, got married, had a kid, built a normal life. I was happy for him, in the way you're happy for someone you love but can't be around anymore. Then, 2 months ago, I got a call from his wife, Amanda, a woman I'd never met but had heard about in messages. She was crying so hard I could barely understand her at first. Marcus was gone. Heart attack in his sleep at 37 years old. The doctor said it was a congenital condition, something he'd probably had his whole life without knowing. Just bad luck. But I knew better. I knew he'd been carrying 18 ghosts for 8 years, and that kind of weight wears you down in ways that don't show up on medical reports. The funeral was in Charleston, full military honors, flag-draped coffin, 21-gun salute. His father and grandfather in their dress uniforms, standing ramrod straight. His mother devastated. His wife holding their 6-year-old daughter, trying to explain why Daddy wasn't coming home. I stayed in the back, didn't speak to the family. What could I say? During the reception, I overheard people talking about what a hero Marcus had been,
how he'd served with honor, how he'd saved lives. They had no idea how right they were. I went back to the documents after the funeral, pulled up everything I'd saved from Firebase Phoenix, did the math. 50 attackers hitting our 28 defenders with surprise on their side. We'd have lost at least 20 guys, probably more. The 4 who survived 3rd Platoon's ambush brought our total losses to 18. 20 versus 18. Marcus had saved 2 net lives by making his deal. Maybe more, given that some of us would have been wounded, not taken out in the Firebase attack. But you can't measure it that way. You can't weigh lives on a scale and call it math. Every one of those 18 guys had people who loved them, families that got destroyed, futures that vanished. And every one of us who survived had the same thing, families that got to keep us, futures that kept unfolding. Marcus chose to save what he could save, and he paid for that choice with every day of the 8 years he had left. I think about telling someone sometimes, about going to military authorities, laying it all out. Marcus Webb made a deal with the enemy. He provided information. He collaborated. But then I think about his daughter, who already has to grow up without her father. Should she also have to grow up knowing he was a traitor? Should his parents have to live with that shame on top of their grief? Should Amanda have to defend a decision her husband made when he was 27 years old and thought he was about to watch his friends get wiped out? I don't know what the right answer is. What I do know is this. Marcus Webb saved my life. He saved Hayes's life, and Morgan's, and Davis's, and Thompson's, and 7 other guys who are walking around, raising families, living life because Marcus made a choice that broke him. He broke protocol. He broke the rules. He gave information to the enemy. And he saved us. I've learned that some choices don't have a right answer. They just have consequences. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is carry those consequences alone, so other people don't have to. Marcus carried them for 8 years. Now I carry the knowledge of what he did and why he did it. I carry the weight of choosing not to destroy his memory. And I'll carry that until the day I'm gone, just like I promised. 12 men are breathing today because Marcus Webb made a deal. 18 others aren't. And somewhere in between those numbers is a truth that's more complicated than betrayal, more painful than sacrifice, and more real than any simple judgment could ever capture. Every year, on the anniversary of when 3rd Platoon was lost, I visit the memorial at Arlington where some of them are buried. I stand there and tell them I'm sorry. Sorry that Marcus chose us over them. Sorry that war forces those kinds of choices. Sorry that there wasn't a better way. Then I go home and I call Hayes. We don't talk about what happened. He doesn't know the full story and he never will. We just check in, talk about our kids, our jobs, our lives. The lives we still have because someone made a terrible choice. And every night before I sleep, I think about Marcus, about the look on his face that night on the North Tower when he realized the men who'd been lost were already on the target list. The relief mixed with horror. The understanding that he'd saved us without causing their end, but that he'd still chosen us over them. I hope wherever he is, he's found some peace. I hope he knows that what he did was both wrong and necessary, betrayal and sacrifice. I hope he knows that the 12 of us who survived understand, even if we'll never speak it out loud. And I hope his daughter grows up knowing her father was a hero, because he was. Just not in any way that I can ever explain to her. Some truths don't set you free. They just give you something new to carry, something heavy, something that changes the shape of you. This is my truth. Marcus Webb saved my life by making a deal with the enemy, and I've chosen to protect his memory by keeping that secret. I don't know if it's the right choice, but it's the choice I've made, and I'll live with it.